It's time for Cats Talk Wednesday. Small town and big city joined forces. Vinny Hardy of Lynch, Kentucky, and Terry Brown of Louisville, Kentucky, team up to give you free-flowing, laid-back sports talk. Focus on Kentucky Wildcats, as well as pertinent information in the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Cats Talk Wednesday. My name is Vinny Hardy, flying solo this evening. The homie TB is a little bit injured, a little bit under the weather. If y'all saw his tweet a few days ago, you saw his elbow, you saw his wrist, you saw his hand all swollen up. And at the time, I was about to make a little joke with him. He was on Round the Shots on Sunday. He's like a every week panelist with Kevin Hale, where they got a lot of guests or a few guests. He's on there every Sunday, and he had his fist up there, and his fist is all swollen up. But that got some bursitis and an infection. And where I'm from in Eastern Kentucky, it looked like a wasper stung him in the wrist. People have that wasp stinging and stuff. You get that swelling and everything. It's the way it looked, but it's not joking anymore because he's having some persistent problems with that. So he's getting himself taken care of, getting himself right. So hope to have TB back next week. Got a friend of the show backstage. As y'all know, we come to y'all courtesy of the BS3 Network. Appreciate Ben Sutterth and Ivan Dawkins and the whole umbrella of podcasts that they have under the BS3 Network, continuing to grow. We're glad to be part of it. Backstage, a friend of the show, chopped it up with this man, went to the crib with him and broke bread. Been a minute since he's been on here with us. He ran the route tree for the North Carolina State Wolfpack and the Baylor Bears. So no better time now than to get a little Devin Leary insight, a little DSK insight, because they played for his Wolfpack and they're about to take on Ball State for Kentucky Saturday. Talking about none other than our guy David Davis. He is kind of like a brother-in-law because Jackie, Steph Curry's aunt, Dale Curry's sister, is the big sister I never had. So he's kind of like a big brother-in-law that I never had. Let's bring him on in here. David Davis, what's going on, man?
Man, what's going on? If he was my agent back in the day, I'd still be playing.
I'm trying to go to the table. Go to the table and take it to the owners, man. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I can't complain, man. Can't complain.
Don't do it.
Should have had you on here a long time ago, way before now. Had you on a couple times, and it's been a minute, man. Glad to have you back.
Good to be back, man. Good to be back to chop it up with you.
Absolutely, man. The wait is almost over. The summertime. Were you kind of itching to see some fall sports happen? We got baseball and golf, and if you like NASCAR, and that's about it. So you glad to see stuff start to happening again in the fall?
Yeah, big time, man. I'm a avid fan of all sports. Don't get me wrong. I'm a NASCAR guy. I'm a tennis guy, of course. Baseball is actually my first love, to be honest with you, as a player and as a spectator. But thank goodness for football. Thank goodness for football.
Absolutely. So your Wolfpack kick it off, your Baylor Bears kick it off. Of course, you played for both of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to talk too much trash, but when Kentucky and North Carolina State met in the bowl game, I'm just saying we got y'all a couple years ago. So
yeah,
that was
I'm gonna blame it on bad refereeing. You did get us though. You did get us.
But Devin Leary was on the squad, from New Jersey. Had a few injury concerns, but when he was out there, 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and that's 7-to-1 touchdown to pick ratio, no matter what league you're playing in.
Yep.
So you saw him more closer than us. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's your alma mater. Mm-hmm. Tell us what we're getting. What can we, kind of expect with the young fella coming to Lexington this season?
Yeah, I seen Devin play a lot, man. Actually, I had a nephew who played linebacker at Clemson, Trenton Simpson, who's now with the Baltimore Ravens. He made the team there. He's a rookie this year, but those games, I got to see Devin play. a lot as a Wolfpack. And I'm going to tell you, Kentucky's getting a mentally tough quarterback. I know your quarterback last year was a very tough guy. Don't get me wrong. But I can honestly say Devin had good protection at NC State, but he was a mentally tough dude. Not only smart, but mentally tough. And like you said, the guy, anybody who throws for 35 touchdowns on any level knows what they're doing, so to speak. But he's a thinker of the game. He reads coverages very, very well. And it's especially with the big receivers. You know, he's the type of quarterback like myself. I used to like him. If they just put it up in the air, I know I'm going to go get it. It's mine. There's no such thing as a 50-50 ball. You know, it's 80-20 mine, you know. Mm-hmm. So Devin's the type, he knows the receivers like that. If it's a big guy, he's going to put it in the area. But if there's a smaller guy, he's more precise with his throws. But Kentucky's getting like I said, a mentally tough and gifted quarterback. There's no reason, he shouldn't be top 5 quarterback coming out of college this year for the NFL draft in the coming year. No reason why he shouldn't be top 5 behind some pretty good quarterbacks. And I could literally see Devin having the type of game Saturday like Hartman did at Notre Dame. You know, coming from Wake Forest, new system, everything. Hartman's a very tough-minded, smart guy and a good quarterback, but I see Devin Leary probably doing the exact same thing Hartman did for Notre Dame. Was going to do for Notre Dame.
Because we've been hearing a few interviews out of practice, from defensive guys, and they're like, man, we're all over dudes, and he just puts it right out of reach, or he's like you said, that accuracy. Mm-hmm. The article about him in The Athletic, he's talking about if you aim small, you miss small. So if he's aiming for his receiver instead of just throwing for the whole body, he's like trying to hit him right on his elbow, where just tight, precise kind of dude, man.
Yep. And he's that type of quarterback too. I mean, he's not going to tell his receivers, but if you don't catch it, it ain't my fault. He's going to put it to where you can catch it. He's that type of quarterback. But I was more impressed with the way he handled the Clemsons of the world. He beat up on Clemson. I don't know, 3 of the 4 years or something like that. I'm not for sure. But he's that type of quarterback who gets the job done in big games too. But having said that, Vinny, we know that the ACC is not the SEC. Mm-hmm. He's going to be going up against every Saturday against great defenses, athletic guys. He's probably had, maybe 2 games a year like that in the ACC a year, but he has to be prepared mentally and physically to do it 10, 11, 12 times a year. And that's going to be the difference for him. But as you know, a quarterback sometimes only goes as his offensive line goes, and hopefully the scheme that the offensive coordinators put him in can assist him in being successful also.
Yeah, that was an Achilles heel last year. Wasn't what Kentucky had been used to the past few years at O-line, and it just never got right. And they got some depth, some guys in the portal, and that's really a priority, is keeping Leary upright, trying to protect this guy. But kind of got that ability, from what you're saying, to just really pick defense apart. Just no matter, kind of be a step ahead type guy, no matter what you throw at him.
Yeah, he's a true pocket passer for sure, but he's able to, he's the type of quarterback that can read a defense and know if it's man-to-man, everybody's gone, he'll tuck it and take off. He's that type of read type guy. Been extremely impressed with him, but like I said, now he has to turn it up a bit every week. Mm-hmm. There are no more Georgia Techs of the world, things like that. It's going to be at Georgia, but it doesn't have Tech at the name. Yeah. So he has to be prepared. And I think he's a mentally tough guy enough to get the job done.
And what about DSK, the running back, Demie Sumo-Karngbaye? I'm glad I'm not Tom Leach that has to pronounce that Saturday. Right. But what is Kentucky getting with him coming from Raleigh as well?
Well, I think he only played in like 8 games for the Pack, but he's a big guy, to be honest with you. I think he's about 6 foot, and that's nowadays that's pretty big for a back on the college level. I think he averaged maybe about 5 yards a carry, somewhere around in there. So he's going to get you yards, but he just didn't have enough carries to get in a good rhythm. but the 8 games he did play in, played very well. But NC State a lot of times turned into that passing offense and, kind of overshadowed the backs. But the carries that he got, he's a tough runner, kind of shifty. He's got some good hips. He'll get through a hole by wiggling his hips, but he's also able to lower the pads and get you that extra yard. So, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Kentucky's going to get 2 guys that will not knowing what Kentucky's had before, but from a mental toughness standpoint and physically going that extra yard, they're getting 2 pretty good guys, man.
Mm-hmm. We're excited to have them. Said the offensive line trying to get back to where it was. And you mentioned, Levis being a big, tough, physical guy. Mm-hmm. And primarily all he had was Wan'Dale Robinson, who was with the Giants. And that was, everybody knew, and he was option 1, 1A, probably 1B in the passing game.
Yeah.
So Leary's got some more weapons around him, kind of like the basketball team where everybody, 5 guys in double figures, that mm-hmm. kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You mentioned big receiver Dane Key is 6'4" mm-hmm. right there in Lexington. Wow. Kind of like you, a throw it up kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And so, the tight ends are deep. They could use a little more depth at wide receiver, but mm-hmm. Liam Cohen coming back from the Rams might kind of use the tight ends to kind of offset maybe what mm-hmm. you're missing with the receivers, because the tight end coach talking about 14 personnel and all that. So they got some tight ends in there, man.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing Leary did well, I think, was utilize his checkdowns a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm in the pocket, and that pocket timer is going off in your head as a quarterback. He gets rid of the ball. He's not afraid to hold on to it too long, hoping something happens downfield. Nothing's happening. Man, let that back get you some yards. Let that tight end, curl it up at 8 yards, and that's 8 yards you didn't have. Yeah. So he uses checkdowns very, very well also. And also the back can catch the ball coming out the backfield too from NC State. So he and they have a familiarity with each other that, as a coach, you have to notice that and know what you're getting and hopefully rely on them to feed off each other a lot of times in the offense. So it'll be very interesting. But, University of Kentucky is, from a football standpoint, is making great strides. It's a process, man. You don't just crawl out of bed and win an SEC championship in football. It's a process. And I think Coach has done a great job of getting guys in there that he wants and knows the offensive schemes, and coaches that'll stick around for a while. And he competed, but then again, you always want to win it. So I think you got to trust his process, because it's not one of those things in SSC where you just wake up one morning and win a football championship. So hopefully the fans will stick with him also.
Absolutely. Now, your Wolfpack kicking it off tomorrow at Connecticut, right? Yep. Am I looking at it right? So what are you expecting from them this season? We got Connecticut, then Notre Dame, VMI, and then Virginia, your first conference.
Yeah, it almost sounds like NC State has a University of Georgia schedule. I don't know if I can I say that on here? I don't know.
Georgia's schedule is light. Yeah, it's a little light this year, man.
Yeah, I get it. But NC State schedule, non-conference there. I think Coach Doran does a great job of rebuilding, to be honest with you. He's a people's coach. He's a player's coach. He's one of those coaches that you want to play for. Like when I was at NC State, I played for Monty Kiffin. Pete Carroll actually signed me at NC State, believe it or not. Yeah, he was the Western North Carolina recruiter. Back then coaches had territories that they recruited. Mm-hmm. And Pete Carroll and Greg Robinson, who was actually a head coach at Syracuse for a while and at UCLA, those 2 guys were my recruiters. And Pete signed me, and Coach Kiffin, they were guys that you wanted to play for. They brought excitement to the table. They were very energetic. It wasn't an autocracy. They want to hear from you what's going on out there. It wasn't, dictatorship by any means when it comes to the players. And Coach Doran now at NC State, like Coach O'Kane and Coach O'Shea did back in the day, they were coaches that players wanted to play for. So Coach Doran's doing a great job of rebuilding. He's a good recruiter, I will tell you that. And he tells those kids now, we're here to build our program. We're here to take down the Clemsons of the world and win an ACC championship. Being in the same division is tough sometimes when you're with the Clemson, but he's on the right path. And this year, it may be the year that they do it and win their divisional championship to play an ACC championship game.
Man, two characters, two legends. I mean, Monty Kiffin and Pete Carroll. So you got a couple stories for each of them, man.
Well, man, Coach Kiffin. True. If you look up, Google him. He rode into practice one day as a Long Ranger on a horse and dressed like the Long Ranger. There was one day we were on the field getting ready to start practice out, warming up. He comes down the trail onto the practice fields, gathered everybody in, talked about some stuff, and then he said, "You know what, guys? It's hot out here. Let's hit the pool." So we all got to go to the PE pool, Carmichael, there on campus. And Coach Carroll's story came out about Snoop Dogg, Will Ferrell, and somebody talking junk about Pete making his defense look bad. It's kind of a skit. But Coach Carroll's 70-something years old out throwing passes to wide receivers in practice. And as a 30-year-old, it's exactly what he did with us. He would test his defensive backs as the quarterback. Sometimes he would run scout team quarterback just to, get a feel for what his DBs are doing. So what you see as a 70-something-year-old Pete Carroll, Coach Carroll, is what he was doing as a 29, 30-year-old when he was at NC State. But it was a wonderful time. And, Coach Kiffin didn't get a fair shake. That whole staff didn't, because Coach Kiffin was signed at NC State under a 3-year contract, but the president hired him. The AD was sick that week, and they really needed to get a hire in. So the president hired Coach Kiffin and his staff. Coach Kiffin's first year, he was 4-7. The next year, he was 5-6. And then my freshman year, we were 6-5. So making progress. Mm-hmm. But that year, my freshman year, we played Miami at Miami, and Jim Kelly was the quarterback. Boomer was at Maryland. We played Penn State up at Penn State. That's the year they won the national championship. So our schedule, was tough, and finished 6-5, and we were predicted to go at least 8-3 the next year. So I had started all 12 games as a freshman and made all ACC freshman team. And then that spring, Coach Kiffin got fired. And a new coach came in, a guy named Tom Reed from University of Michigan. He was an assistant under Bo Schembechler. And he just wasn't a good guy to play with. And like 9 or 10 of us transferred that year. And so I went to junior college one year because I didn't want to sit out in Taft, California. We won a national championship out there. And went on my 5 visits, and I narrowed it down to Baylor and Miami, University of Miami. Took my visits, and I made a verbal commitment to Miami after my visit. And no, it took me 2 weeks to get over my visit because Michael Irvin was my host. I'm a mountain boy from Spindale, North Carolina. Good Lord. It took me 2 weeks to get over that visit. So me and Mike had a great time, met all the players. But Bernie Kosar was the quarterback. And he actually graduated as a junior, and he was the number 1 pick. So he went pro, but Coach Johnson never mentioned the backup quarterback. So I was like, well, Dad, I don't know who's backup is going to be. Baylor's my next choice. Cody Carlson, defense, Thomas Everett, Ray Crockett, Robert Blackman. We had like 8 guys go pro that year, my senior year. And of course, the next year, history writes itself, and Miami won the national championship. But I never, ever regretted, going to Baylor with the good people, good Southern Baptist school. Southwest Conference back then was loaded. Mm-hmm. Non-conference, we played Georgia, Southern Cal, beat them. Well, Georgia beat us between the hedges. They really cheated. You look at the game film. There was one of them situations where they put time back on the clock so they didn't kick a field goal, dude. But we beat Southern Cal in the Coliseum. They were ranked number 3 in the nation that year. Second game of the season, and we beat them out there. But Baylor was a wonderful experience, and I'll share one story at Baylor with Coach Taft. Every week the game that we were going to play, he equated it to a story in the Bible. So of course the Southern Cal week was the David story. So David and Goliath, right? We weren't ranked, very good team, but weren't ranked. We beat Wyoming first, and then had to play Southern Cal. So every week, we heard at the end of practice a story about how David prepared. So we go out to the Coliseum, and we're up, I think 10-7 at halftime, or 14-10 or something. And we go in the locker room, get our, individual position meetings, and then we meet back up. And Coach Taft said, guys, he has a smile on his face. He's like, man, we're doing exactly what David did. As coaches all week, we pick certain plays to run against Southern Cal like David picked certain stones.
Okay.
But here's the thing. David knocked the Giant down, but he wasn't finished. And we all got quiet in the room. And then he said, David chopped the head off. Let's go chop the head off.
Oh, man.
That's all we needed. So we went out. I think we beat them 21-17 that game, and that put us on the map. And I think that year we finished 9th or 10th or 11th in the nation that year. But that team was loaded also. So I don't regret either. I love my time at NC State because I'm a Wolfpacker at heart. But Baylor was one of the best decisions of my life. And Coach Grant Taft is the second best man I've ever met in my life besides my dad. So it was a great experience.
Because I was gonna ask you, could you pick one over the other? Is it like kids, Baylor and NC State? Is it like you?
I'm like I said, I'm a Wolfpack at heart, but I'm a sick and bear all day too. But I think at NC State, having played as a freshman all 12 games, it made me a better receiver. Coming out of high school, because I grew up all my life a quarterback actually, and but Baylor, those 2 years at Baylor were just something special, man. The Southwest Conference again, Texas A&M, Arkansas was loaded, SMU was loaded, of course, illegally, of course.
Yeah.
But the old joke back then was SMU players took a pay cut when they went to the pros. I love the time back in the old Southwest Conference too. In the A&M game, my senior year, we played at Kyle Field, and it's called to this day. You can Google it, the greatest game in Southwest Conference history. It was that good. They beat us 31-30 that game. Kevin Murray was the quarterback, and Johnny Holland on defense. They were loaded, but man, we at Baylor, I can name names. Thomas Everett was the first Jim Thorpe Award winner.
Cowboys. I remember the Cowboys. Yeah.
Ron Francis, James Francis, linebacker with the Bengals. Again, Ray Crockett. Every day in practice, just to give you an insight of, even at NC State, the 4 defensive backs who started at State, I went against every day, went to the NFL. It was D.D. Hoggart, who went to Cleveland. Perry Williams played on the Giants Super Bowl teams. Our free safety was Eric Williams, who played for the Steelers and was Playboy All-American. And our strong safety was Don Wilson, who played for the Bills. Now, when I went to Baylor, all 4 of those guys I went against every day were NFL players. We had Ron Francis, who played with the Cowboys. The other corner was Ray Crockett, played with the Broncos and the Lions. Thomas Everett was free safety, and Robert Blackman, who played with the Seahawks for years, was our strong safety. So every day in practice, I got better, and hopefully I made them better, because those are great times, and I'll always cherish them.
So you mentioned 80-20 as far as the go get it is yours. Were you the tall guy? Were you the burner? Were you the possession guy? Were you a little bit of everything? What type of, I'm not saying put yourself in a box, but what would they, defenders kind of, if the scouting report, Davis is they love to throw the fade to Davis. What type of wide out were you?
Man, I was the type of wide out. I love going across the middle.
Okay.
I love running slant routes and dig routes. And of course, the scouting report on me after talking to, I'm now good friends with Larry Brown, who won the MVP Super Bowl. And the scouting report was, I'll climb on you and it won't look like I'm running it all. So when you're in your back pedal, because coming out, I ran like a 4.48 at my pro day for the 49ers. So I was fast, but I was long, but I strided out and it didn't look like I was running fast. So that was one thing, but I got game film. We played Texas Tech. I caught one of their defenses. They would line a linebacker up on one of our formations on the tight end. So coach lined me up at tight end one time, and I had a linebacker on me, total mismatch. I come off the line, get the 2-yard pass, and I turn it into 69 yards. But I tell people that skill, finesse, and scared. No shame here. I didn't like to get touched coming off the line, and it helped me get off the line clean. But also, I didn't like getting tackled, so I ran fast. At Baylor, I still have I'm still one of the top. I averaged 19 yards a catch at Baylor, 19 and some change. And so I could turn that quick slant into something big. And even at NC State as a freshman, I held the freshman touchdown receiving record for like 31 years. I caught that first touchdown of the season for NC State as a freshman, actually. But I was that type of receiver. I'm going to get you. As a receiver, you have to have that mentality. There is no way on earth. You know what you're going to do. You know what route you're going to run. There's no way on earth the DB should be able to stop you, especially in man-to-man. I mean, I'm the type, I was a little cocky, I admit it. If I see a man-to-man matchup, I would just stare at the quarterback and just shake my head. So that you can't do it. Just can't do it. And I was always taller than a lot of the DBs that I went against, during that time. And then I was fortunate enough to play a year and a half with the Houston Oilers. And then my second knee surgery, I just decided to call it a day. And you're talking about Warren Moon being my quarterback. My rookie year, me and Haywood Jeffries were rookies together. He's an NC State guy. Alonzo Highsmith, Al Smith was a linebacker. But that was another thing, the speed of the game. Like I told my nephew who's with the Ravens now, I told him, I said, dude, the speed of the game is really going to blow your mind, but don't let it affect you mentally. Get comfortable with who you are and what you can do and know your reads as a linebacker and just, go to the ball, because the speed of the game, is incredibly different on the pro level. So unbelievable. And I'm sure if you talk to a lot of guys from Kentucky who are in the pros, you say, hey, what's the biggest difference? Speed of the game and how much they throw at you. When your playbook is, about 4 inches thick, and you got to have all the reads in there as a wide receiver, the read option routes. It can get pretty hectic, but those two things are the biggest thing, making that leap into the next level.
So coming up, being from North Carolina, and I think about you in the morning. I go to work. You get in the car before the Bluetooth kicks in on your phone, the radio's on, and sometimes it'll be stations locally. But it was on this 88.7 WNCW out of Spindale going to work one day. Coming in, clears the bell. I was like, wow, Spindale, North Carolina. I said, that's David's hometown, man.
Yes, sir.
I was thinking about you, and it was coming. I'm outside of Knoxville, but getting it clear.
What?
And they were playing a little jazz, some little global, some little Caribbean kind of music. And so I didn't even switch over to Bluetooth. I'm like, okay, let me just let's go old school with the old radio all the way into work. And I was like, look at Spindale coming.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll. Man, growing up, I'm so fortunate, Denny, man. Growing up, my town was like maybe 3,200 people, man. But we had 3 high schools in the county, actually. And we talk about pros, man. There were 2 guys from my hometown who played in the NFL. Rod McSwain played with the Patriots when they lost the Super Bowl to Chicago, and then Chuck McSwain, his brother. They're, Chuck's in the Hall of Fame at Clemson. Both of them went to Clemson. But we just learned to compete against each other, man. That's all we had. The only thing we had to do was go to school, play sports, and go cow tipping every now and then to make sure we're good athletes, running from cows. But that was a good life, man, growing up in a small town like that. It makes you appreciate things, even as an adult. The things that you didn't have or weren't exposed to. When you were exposed and got them, you appreciate them a little bit more. And that's what Spindale, North Carolina did to me. And that's, there's this myth nowadays, of course. Well, you got to play at this big high school. You got to be from a big city. No, on the college level, if you can play, they'll find you. On the pro level, it doesn't matter what college you go to, they will find you.
Sure will.
There's a kid from my hometown now with the Vikings. He went to Georgia Southern, wasn't recruited, big coming out of high school and everything. But, he's from Spindale, went to Georgia Southern, and now he's with the Minnesota Vikings. If you can play, they will find you for sure. I do a lot of seminars with parents, in the summer. talking about some of these things like NCAA eligibility, recruiting, what they should look for. And then what do college coaches look for in parents? Because for a fact, these AAU games are terrible with parents' involvement, or, even off the court, how much the parents are involved. And we have long, what I call crucial conversations, with the parents on what college coaches look for. I was a high school basketball coach in North Carolina for a long time, and in Florida. And I've had guys play for Bobby Knight, in South Carolina when Eddie Fogel was there, in UNC Charlotte, everywhere. And I know all these coaches. Even I've worked Carolina and Duke camp for 16, 17 years. They always were at AAU games sitting around. They say, Coach Davis, whose parents are those? I'd never recruit that kid. And I have to tell the parent, think about a Duke, Carolina, or a Kentucky game. Do you ever see a crazy parent sitting behind the bench going, no, you don't. They look for they recruit parents too. Back when I was coming up with Coach Carroll and them, went over to across the street to meet my neighbors. What kind of kids they, they went across the street to talk to my neighbors, man. So there are a million things that I talk about with these parents, when dealing with their kids, when it comes to the recruiting side on what to look for to make sure your kid has every chance to make it to the next level.
Absolutely. Yep. And when you mentioned when you're coming up, of course, playing quarterback and before switching to wide receiver. So let me ask a two-part question. Who were you watching, as far as trying to emulate in college? As I guess you were probably watching quarterbacks more than receivers, but who were you watching at the college or the pro level? I guess as a QB, since you were a QB for most of your time coming up.
Yeah, man, it's weird because I grew up a Miami Dolphin fan because when they were, when I was growing up at that 8 or 9 years old, they were the best thing going. And I remember from a quarterback standpoint, I will admit, I used to love watching Roger Staubach play. I used to love watching Terry Bradshaw play as a quarterback. But when it came to receiver roles, I always went a Miami Dolphin. Paul Warfield was great to me. But then later on, I started watching the Drew Pearsons and Lynn Swans of the world because they were kind of big receivers too. But I used to love,
they glided like you, didn't they?
Yeah, man. They were exceptional, man. And they caught every ball. They were good route runners, caught the discipline. But the quarterbacks, man, I was a big, of course, Bob Greasy fan, but Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach, I hate the Cowboys, but I give credit where credit's due. Yeah. Man, they were something else back in the day. But on the college level back then, it's weird because in Spindale, you may have, I don't know if you may not be old enough to remember, but they used to have on Sunday mornings USC highlights and Notre Dame highlights on Sunday morning.
Oh, wow.
From Saturday's game. Then Scully used to narrate. And they would just show certain plays from their games, right? 30 minutes. I grew up admiring Southern Cal. And I used to tell people Anthony Davis was my cousin. Anthony Davis was a tailback at Southern Cal, scored 6 touchdowns against Notre Dame. So I grew up liking, I'd sit there Sunday morning because I was a sports fanatic. If sports was on, I had to watch it. And Southern Cal was it. So back to that Southern Cal game, we came out to the Coliseum. It's huge, starting to fill up. We're out getting warm-ups, catching balls. We go in to get our instruction. It was an ABC game. We come out. We're in the tunnel. It's about 100,000 people filled up stadium. I was cooled in. We ran to the sideline. I'm on the sideline catching balls. I'm still cool. I turn around. I see the daggum Trojan on that horse come out. I turned into an 8-year-old. I was like, oh my God. His vest was shiny. I'm like, what in the heck is going on here? And it just triggered something in my mind because you said something very telling, Vinny, about who did I watch? I emulated athletes, baseball players. I emulated everything they did at the plate. I was a center fielder, emulated things going on in the outfield. As a basketball player, David Thompson was my hero growing up. He's from Shelby. David Thompson was my hero. I emulated David Thompson, jab step, jump, shoot, whatever the case may be. But kids don't do that nowadays because they don't watch sports, like we used to growing up. There was not a sports event that was on TV that I did not want to watch. I would just sit in the middle of the floor and watch sports with my dad. And I emulated those athletes. I wanted to do things like them, how I held my bat up high, everything. And that was important to me. The emulation of guys at that level because I wanted to be them. But I think a lot of that is not going on now for whatever reasons. They have outside influences that take up their time other than just sitting watching a game every hour that they can. And those are some of the things that's lacking with these kids growing up nowadays.
And so I was thinking, as I was asking you, I was like, man, you probably didn't see a lot of guys on the West Coast, and then you say you got the USC highlights every week.
Yes, sir.
Did you get a little bit of Warren Moon at Washington as well, or were they?
No, it was only the USC highlights.
Wow.
They only showed Notre Dame highlights and USC highlights, and it was 30 minutes of put together plays from that game, and then Scully would narrate it, tell us what's going on. I never got to watch Warren Moon. Of course, he was my teammate with the Oilers.
Yeah.
And I admired him, being in college, and he was a pro then. I admired everything he did in the CFL. But as a stand-up guy, I mean, he cracked two of my fingers because his balls would get up on you so quick.
Wow.
But he was that guy. He wasn't the tallest guy in the world. And that my rookie year, he had two big receivers, me and Haywood Jeffries. The other guys, when we went to camp, Ernest Givens was about 5'7". Drew Hill was about 5'6". Willie Drury, rest in peace, Drew Hill. Willie Drury, all these guys were short. And me and Haywood kind of stuck out like sore thumbs. But now instead of throwing in windows to see those smaller guys across the middle, he can now see a shoulder pad and a helmet. Because our line was huge back then. Bruce Matthews, who's a Hall of Famer, was like 6'7". Dean Steinkühler, Coach Maggs, who the coach used to be with the Titans, a line coach. Maggs, he was Maggs, Munchak, Dean Steinkühler. Those guys were huge. So, like I said, Warren was kind of took a pink having targets. But I think the world of Warren Moon, not only as a Hall of Fame quarterback, of course, but a great person too, man. A real good person.
Absolutely. Going back to SMU, you went up against Dickerson and James and all them.
I was against Pony Express too, Depard and Atkins.
Okay.
Yeah, Depard and Atkins. The year, my junior year was the year they got the death penalty, I think. So my senior year, they were really bad. But yeah, I was at Pony Express too. McElhaney was the quarterback, and Dupard and Atkins were the tailbacks. But they had a good Morris was a receiver that year. I forgot his first name. He was a good receiver. But yeah, by far, Dickerson and Craig James were the two highest paid players in pro football.
Yeah.
As seniors at SMU. Yeah, but it was a great time in the Southwest Conference. But back then things were a little different,
Now, I don't know if my years are right. That's what I'm asking. Did you see Dupree at Oklahoma? Was he there when you were?
Marcus Dupree was we didn't play against him, but I think he was a freshman. I think Marcus Dupree was 83 or 84. Okay. But we had heard about this kid. Of course, he was like, bigger than life. Running back. We heard about him, but OU, they were the Big Eight back then.
Okay. They wasn't Southwest
they were
Conference.
Missouri.
My bad. That's right.
Southwest Conference. They weren't in the Southwest Conference back then.
Right. See, I'm thinking Big 12, and they all. But yeah, that's right. Okay.
Eric Metcalf was at Texas. He was a running back at Texas that year. The quarterback at Southern Cal was Rodney Peete. Well, Stansbury was my junior year, then Rodney Peete my senior year. But just the coaches back then, Jackie Sherrill, Royal, Hatfield at Arkansas, coaches, and kind of like the Southeast Conference today, the Southwest Conference was that conference back in the day when it came to every week. Rice wasn't that good, but University of Houston was good back then, man. Of course, the ones that I named, SMU, Arkansas, Texas, Texas A&M, we're loaded. But like I said, at Baylor, we were not only, well, my teammates were not only great people, but the coaches were exceptional.
I think about going back to Dupree, you being a North Carolina guy, you went to NC State. Not everybody stays home, but you did initially until the coaching change. I don't know if there's research for this, but to me, Mississippi has let more guys get away from the big state schools, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I mean, Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Brett Favre, Marcus Dupree, Jason Campbell, all from Mississippi. None of them went to Ole Miss or Mississippi State, which is
I know Brett went to Southern Miss, I think.
Yeah,
but you're right. And you know what? To be honest with you, some kids want to get away from home. Don't get me wrong, but if you have the number 1 through 10 football player from your state that you can't get, there's something else going on. Now we have coaching but Ole Miss, Mississippi State has a lot of coaching turnover too, so that could be a reason. But guys from North Carolina, they play at Chapel Hill. They go to NC State. But you're right, and I think Florida has an excuse because there's so many athletes in Florida. Florida State, Florida. Miami can't take them all. To be honest with you, I'm being totally honest. There's a man, just a wealth of talent in Florida, and Georgia's getting to be the same way too. Kentucky's doing a great job of infiltrating. Stoops. The bordering states. You want to stay true to your state and take the best athletes, but my gosh, if you can get the number 2 running back from the state of Tennessee, or the number 4 linebacker out of Alabama, that's a win for the state of Kentucky. But I think Stoops he's going along the bordering states and getting some pretty good talent, man. Same thing with Texas. Texas just has a wealth of talent that. Kids nowadays don't want to play at the University of Texas. Baylor's doing a great job of getting those kids now, top recruits out of the state of Texas. But for whatever reason, you hit the nail on the head with Mississippi, man. None of those kids stay there. Top kids.
Hall of Famers. All those. I mean, I don't know if every state can say, well, we've had a bunch of Hall of Famers that we missed on. But I mean, Herschel Walker went to Georgia. And a lot of Georgia guys stay there. But Stoops, I mean, prior to him, Kentucky tried to get into Georgia and the southern states, but he's from Ohio, so he's hit Cincinnati, which is just an hour from Lexington. He's got a nice little pipeline in Cincinnati and brought those, hey, you're just an hour from home and can play in the SEC, and that has really worked. A lot of Ohio kids, Mike Edwards.
Where was your quarterback from last year?
He transferred from Penn State. He's from Connecticut.
Yeah. There you go. But Stoops, I think, and I do it too. He throws his name out there, man. He uses his name in a big way. Stoops' last name carries a lot of weight, and not only in the Southeast, but across the United States.
Yeah, family.
When it comes to his last name, so he if he was smart, he'd have his brother on the phone a little bit, talking to some of these guys, but that last name go a long way. But then again, his book of work, his resume of work there at the University of Kentucky is going to take him extremely far. And I think he's building that program to tell kids right now, you come here, we need people like you to get us to that next level, and we're missing pieces. We're right there at the cusp of ACC championship. We can compete, but not only do we want to compete, we want to win. And I think he can throw that out to kids now to say, you're that missing piece. We get sick and tired of hearing about the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas of the world. Dude, we beat them. We compete, but we want to win it. And, you're the number 1 linebacker in the nation. Come help us win this championship. And now maybe one day you'll have a statue outside of the stadium for doing so. Yeah. Going somewhere to build instead of going somewhere where it's already laid out for you. That's a good recruiting tool.
And some guys, like you said, some guys like that, and that draws them. Yeah, I want to go be part of this process. And
great point. And it worked on me at NC State. I knew I wanted to be a wide receiver. I loved Mike Quick. coming out. He was number 22. When I took my visits, Clemson, I went to Clemson, but they just came off winning the national championship. That foundation was built. And when Coach Kiffin told me, man, if you come to NC State and work, you can start as a freshman. You could be the next Mike Quick. I'm like, dude, where do I sign?
Yeah.
And so sure enough, it happened. The biggest day for me pride-wise was opening my locker first day as a rookie, as a freshman, and they gave me number 22. And I'm hooked, because Mike Quick, Philadelphia Eagle, great Philadelphia Eagle, and big receiver. And he's a friend to this day. But some things like that from a coaching standpoint, you got to just put on the table, think outside the box when recruiting. Not only telling these guys what they want to hear, but the sincerity of, man, we get somebody like you. One, I got coaches to put you in a position to make it to the next level. But on the road to that, we're going to win championships and not only compete, but win championships. But we need people like you. And I think Coach Stoops is smart enough guy to do that and say that.
And honestly, this is the best it's been in my lifetime. I was born in 77, so I heard my dad talk about that 77 team that went 10-1, lost to your Baylor Bears.
Yep.
Derek Ramsey. They lost to Mike Singletary and all those guys down there.
81. That was 81 team, I think, wasn't it?
77.
77 team, because Mike was a senior in 81. He was the last Cotton Bowl team for Baylor.
Okay.
81. Yep. Man.
And so before 2018, I'd never seen a Kentucky team win 10 games, because the year I was born was the last time they won 10. So they won 9, won the bowl game, got 10, and they've done it twice in the last 4 or 5 years. So this is blowing my mind. Wow. I grew up losing to Tennessee 26 years in a row. I went from age 7 to age 34 without seeing a win over Tennessee. So this is the kind of history he's trying to change. A 32-year losing streak to Florida. So that he beat Florida in the swamp, and now beat them 3 out of 5. Should have beat them about 5 or 6 years in a row, but he's slowly, knocking down terrible historical streaks.
Yeah, and he can use that to his advantage out there on the recruiting trail. This ain't the old Kentucky. This ain't your dad's Kentucky. It said this is not your father's Kentucky football team, dude. This is where we're going, and that trajectory is great. But again, it's going to take that special kid. It's going to take him getting 1 or 2 special kids in 1 year to come to Kentucky, like the 5-star, either first or second in their state, and other kids will come because they'll want to be part of it. And that's going to be huge. Keep the state of Kentucky, though. You got to do well in your backyard for sure. But then again, those bordering states, like him being from, the Cincinnati area, northern Kentucky, lower Ohio, is huge to get some of those big recruits too.
That's it.
Unlike Calipari, who can he has a Rolodex of them. He can just call one of them up and they're there. But Stoops is on the right track. I'm excited to see what Kentucky's going to do this year. You guys got some great uniforms too, by the way. They got some pretty slick uniforms.
I like them.
Yeah,
and those chrome ones, when they go with the chrome ones, man, I like that chrome too.
Yeah.
How you think your Dodgers gonna do, man?
World Series. I caught myself. Go ahead. Finish your question. I'm sorry.
I was like, how you got the West locked up. Kind of like my Braves got the East locked up. And we both have seen titles here recently, you guys, and we both got one. So y'all just cruising, just gonna handle it and bring home another one.
Whew, boy. Here you go. Well, if we got some starters out, if we get Bueller back, oh my God,
Kentucky boy, man. Kentucky
yes, sir.
Boy.
If we get Bueller back, I'm gonna be tickle pink. But he went to Vanderbilt, didn't he?
He's from Lexington, but went to Vanderbilt.
Yeah. So if we get Bueller back and Urias get his head out of his butt, Kershaw's Kershaw. My only knock on Clayton Kershaw, playoff time, sometimes he disappears in playoffs, man. I know I told you I took a sabbatical 1 year and just traveled to watch Dodger games. I lived in LA, got to travel with the team, and I think I watched like 93 games that year. And that was a year we lost 5 game. It was a 5-game series to St. Louis, and they beat Kershaw twice in one series. So sometimes in playoff, he can disappear for whatever reason. But our starting pitcher, our bullpen is getting back good, but our starters have to give us like 5 or 6 innings, and that hadn't been happening. But like I said, with Buehler coming back, oh my God, we can hit the ball. I mean, from our Mookie and Freeman are the best 1-2. Now, not to knock your Braves, but Mookie and Freddie Freeman are the best 2-1-2 hitters in the major leagues, I think. And thank you for allowing Freddie to come to us.
Speaking of agents,
exactly. Good point. Point taken. You're right. But yeah, we can hit the baseball from top to bottom. But it's one of those things we can't look at outscoring people every game. We got to get stops. We can't be, speaking of Baylor, Baylor's offense can put up 42 points but lose 44-42.
Yeah.
And that's something in baseball, the analogy, to compare it. Dodgers, we can't win game. Well, we can, but it's not good. Win games 8-7. Dude, let's get some 8-1s. Let's stop people. Get some better pitching. But I think that'll happen. Hopefully, Vinny, we can see a Braves, Dodgers, LCS. And I can call you and talk junk again. But hopefully we can see that. That's what I'm rooting for, by the way.
Speaking of defense, you mean Baylor losing 44-42. Aranda, I mean, that's a defensive guy. You think he's gonna get that tightened up a little bit?
Yeah, he's got to. I mean, I think he's going into his 3rd year, if I'm not mistaken. And it's time. Those are his guys. He recruited them. And I tell college coaches, I tell the story. If you got guys for 3 to 4 years, those are your guys. There's no more excuses. I got these other kids. I didn't recruit them. These are your guys. No excuses. And so with him being a defensive great mind that he is, he's got to tighten up that part of it. Our quarterback's coming back. We got quarterbacks though for 4,000 yards, and lose games. And the Big 12 was tough. Don't get me wrong. But there was that one year our quarterback broke his neck. That year we were like 8-0. He broke his neck, but I think that's the year we could have won a national championship, to be honest with you. But things happen. You live and learn. You got to move on. But if he doesn't get this defense going, man, it's his defense. If anything, take over the defensive play call, and I don't know, do something as a head coach to prove your point that that Baylor can get it done. But offensively, we're going to be fine. But our defense, man, they're Swiss cheese, man, on that defensive side of the ball.
And not to beat it up, but you grew up admiring USC. They kind of a similar situation. They let San Jose State throw up 28 points, and we saw them struggle to tackle people last year. And game 1 is an indication of we haven't seen. They're kind of picking up where they left off last year. But Caleb is great. The offense is great, but you start playing Oregon and UCLA and all those guys. They got to get some stops too, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't mean to knock the Pac-12, but there's no excuse in the Pac-12 not to stop people. I mean, there are good offenses out there, don't get me wrong. But part of the problem, a lot of people don't realize this, the outside of the box thinking. Part of the problem, when you have a great quarterback and a great offense, you score quick. The other team has the ball a lot of the time. Your defense gets tired on the field. So the long drives sustain against your defense because your offense scores so quickly. I'm not saying they should slow it down and have 12 play drive. The score is a score. Yeah. And again, when you do score quickly, the other team, if you look at stats when it comes to time of possession, I guarantee you those high potent offenses may be half the time with the ball as the other team because they do score so quickly. And that's Southern Cal's problem. Great offense, great quarterback, but they're going to score so quickly, man, because they're so explosive. Their defense is going to be on the field a lot of time, and teams are going to score. Now, having said that, you have a quick 3 and out because you throw the ball 3 downs. You don't score. Again, the team takes over the ball, defense on the field a long period of time and score. Yeah. So things like that come into play, Vinny, when you do have a great offense and teams are scoring a lot against you. But as a coach, you can't tell a team don't score quick. Right. You just have to say defense. It is what it is. They're that great. we have to sustain drives and, bow our neck a little bit and stop people because that does happen.
Last thing, man, I'll get you out of here. I mean, the NBA is still around the corner, but we're moving into fall and it's coming. I just got to ask you this Adam Silver midseason tournament, man. What are you thinking about the whole inauguration of that?
I have to say I'm all for testing it. I think it's an incentive for players to make more money. I think it's like $1 million or something, that pot for the winning team. And there's a lull about Christmas time. There you have your Christmas Day games, yada, yada, yada. But during the course of the season, they have these particular games already picked out that are going to count toward the standings for this tournament. I think it'll bring excitement. Don't get me wrong. I think it's only adding like one game instead of an 82-game season. It's going to be an 83-game season. They cut back some games in the regular season to make this work. I'm all for trying it and then letting the players dictate if they should continue to have it or not. But, I've talked to a couple of guys and they're excited about that. Don't get me wrong. And it will bring it more excitement to the NBA mid-season. Because, some NBA not true fans only wait till the playoffs and the finals, to be honest with you, to turn it on. They don't watch, that game, November 8th, whatever. But, playoffs and championship is when the viewers come in. But this adds a new wrinkle mid-season, hopefully to capture more viewers and to give a little bit more excitement. Dudes, we're putting this together for you mid-season to earn extra bucks. And I'm going to be honest with you, I know no NBA player is turning down more money, no matter how much they got. Yeah. So I'm excited to see it, Vinny, to be honest with you. But in the end, I'd hope Commissioner Silver will listen to the players and get their feedback if it should continue or not.
That's fair. Yeah. I guess it'll have to win me over. I'm just like, well, I'll see what happens. And then, I was the same way with the rule changes. I was like, man, I don't know. As far as baseball, with the pitch clock and
I love pitch clock.
All that.
I'm sorry, Benny.
You do, man. And I was like, to me, it wasn't necessary. I'm like, I don't go to a baseball game to be timed. Yeah. I want to go and eat my hot dog. If it's a 14-inning game and it lasts 4 hours, if it's a 9-inning pitcher's duel and it's an hour and 48 minutes, I don't care. Either way, it didn't bother me. But it wasn't as annoying as I thought it would be. I get it. I'm on board with it. And at the beginning, I was like, man, this is unnecessary. This is pointless. Yeah. And it's cool now, Yeah. So
I will tell you there's a trade-off. No, not yet. Hold that thought, because there's a trade-off. I'm for it because it does cut. We got 2-hour games now, dude. That's another hour and a half I might get back in my life where I'm not watching the game. I love baseball. It's my first love. But I think they should do away, now that we have the pitch clock, do away with the runner on second base in extra innings. Because, they supposedly did that to speed up the end of the game. But now games are shorter. So go back to your regular, bunt a guy over to get him over, the regular, extra inning scenario. Now that you've got that extra time from usage of pitch clock, take that run off second base, dude. Yeah. That's one thing I will agree with you on, dude. We can do away with that. But the pitch clock, I'm for it. Get in there and hit the ball. Get on the mound and pitch the ball. Nothing's going to change in that extra 30 seconds you took walking around the mound. It's going to change.
That's true.
You're an athlete. You're a top of the line athlete. I know it made the pitchers get in better shape.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But you get on the mound, and get on the rubber, toe the rubber, throw the ball. Get in the batter's box, hit the baseball. I was always a first pitch hitter. I knew
ambushing stuff. Like, he was ambushing guys. He was ambushing whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I know he's going to, hopefully, if he's a good pitcher, going to try to get ahead of me with his first pitch because I was a good hitter. Man, I dig in so quick and be ready to go. If it's right there in my wheelhouse coming from his hand where I want it, done deal. I ain't sit and take a pitch to see a ball and all that stuff. I was first pitch guy. Now, he knows that when he throws a ball, I'm ahead of him now. He's got to come back to me.
Yeah,
right. But I was a first pitch guy. So major leaguers, suck it up, buttercup, get in there and hit, Batter's box and hit, get on toe to rubber and throw it. That's good baseball.
There you go.
Give it a break. Give it a chance, Vinny. Come on, give it a chance.
Okay, you're right. And this has been a good conversation, man. Good baseball, good football, good basketball, and appreciate you taking the time. And definitely got to get you back on here, man.
Please.
For sure.
I will tell you this. Shout out to Kentucky. They have the best NBA players in the league. There are 5 Kentucky guys right now. If they were on the same team, they win a championship. I think they're that good. So whatever. I know they didn't win. How many? Not a lot of championships. They didn't win as many as they should. I'll say that while at Kentucky, even with the one and done. But as pros in the NBA, the Kentucky players, if you looked in the playoff, every team had 1 or 2 Kentucky players on it.
Yeah.
They're that good on that level. So, and to me right now, one of my favorite players to watch is Booker. I'm a Devin Booker fan, not only because he's a great player, but he's tenacious. He has that dog in him to let you know I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. You got to stop me, but on the other end, I can stop you too. He's a two-way guy, and I appreciate that out of him. Got to get AD to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Got to get him to stay healthy for whatever reasons. I don't know if it's the off season is not, up to par to where those other guys are, but that's something that that he has to, it's tough. It's tough on a kid who consistently has injuries and just can't break that mold. I don't know if it's mental. Can't be mental because he's physically getting hurt. But it's off season. Shore up that off season a little bit. Big Cat. I like watching Big Cat play. I wish he would have I wish he would just take a piece of marker and erase a 3-point line and pretend there's one not there, because he would dominate inside. Cat would dominate inside. But I just wanted to say that to all your listeners. I totally appreciate as a coach watching them play on that level, collect as a group of University of Kentucky players.
And you mentioned Stoops and how he's recruiting and continuing to build and different pitches he can use as far as Ohio kids and all that. Cal can just roll up and talk about the contracts for all his guys that are in the billions, literally for his guys in the league. And I mean,
and he can just say, "Hey, how would you like?" And draw a number on a little Post-it note. I'd send the kid's mom and dad the same Post-it note with just a number on it. This could be you. That's what he's going to do. And in college, just like I'll say this to anybody who'll listen, college is a place where you learn your craft to earn money, to earn a career, whether it's academically an engineer. They take engineering classes. Kids can come to school and take classes, but if they go to University of Kentucky and they're a basketball player, they're going to learn their craft at a high level to make that money on the next level, just like Joe walking the street, walking a college campus who's not playing sports. They're taking those classes to obtain a great job in their field or their, careers. That's what the, athletes do. The only thing different, they have to take classes to stay eligible. But they're learning their craft in order to make money. And Cal does a great job. I bet you add up all of Cal's players' bank accounts and contracts. Good Lord. He probably not enough zeros. So that's one thing I do appreciate about Cal that he's doing. But those players on the next level have been tremendous, and I love watching them because I'm a fan.
And AD still, getting knocked for not being healthy. Charles Barkley called him street clothes Davis. Just signed the richest extension in history of the league. So
in the league,
I mean,
and evidently the Lakers know something we don't know. They're putting a lot of trust in their kid, and I know AD probably wants to stay healthy. Everybody does. Don't get me wrong. He's not one of them kids that, man, I wish I was hurt. No,
right.
But something has to change in his off season and things that go along with the season. And I'll share a story with you. As you know, with Stephen, his ankles were terrible when he came into the league. I mean, garbage. He had garbage ankles. He had a procedure done, but his training in the off season, this dude will take 2 weeks off, and then even when he's on vacation, he works out. He finds a gym and work out in. On vacation with the wife and kids. During the year, there are things that he does for his ankles and just body. He comes in, you look at his body. He's getting older, but he transforms his body into this muscle. He does it all year. I don't know what other players, I know what some players do in the off seasons. I don't know what AD and other players do, but there's something has to change in that off season when it comes to conditioning, not only conditioning, cardio, but strengthening those areas you get hurt in.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the season, it's not you take a day off. You know, even that off days, you're conditioning those areas you've been hurt in. And like I said, I'm not in their training camps or anything. I just know what other people do, but there has to be something different that they need to do to keep this kid healthy because he's a great player.
Exactly. Gotta find the right combination and you know, off season and then sustain it to where you can be durable enough to hold up to that grind. You're right. You're exactly
Totally
right.
agree. Totally agree.
Man, enjoyed this, Dave. Give my love to Jackie.
Will.
Both of y'all, man. Have to get back over there and holler at y'all when we over there.
Yeah, last time we seen you, they probably grown by now.
Hey, both tall as I am, man. But 14 and 10 and look at me in the eye, man. It's flying by just like that.
Yeah. Good. Give your wife hello. Tell her we said hello and the kids, man. And like I said, we got the Bikino board waiting on you when you come back down and some good food. We'll get it done. And you know, all your listeners out there on the network, you know, you're getting some good information, not only from Vinny, but the guests he brings on. You know, if they want to contact me, I'm on Instagram at Coach David Davis on Instagram. So you can follow me there if you have any questions or want to continue conversations. I'm the type of guy, I don't leave a question unanswered. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Appreciate it. I should have put that in there. I put your Twitter in there, but you don't tweet much. But this will be, I'll put it on LinkedIn.
Okay.
It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Roku, so people can watch wherever you listen to the Apple Podcast or Spotify. People can listen or watch whatever they choose to do. So we'll get this episode out here. You came on here and dropped knowledge for us, Triple D, man. Appreciate it.
I try hard.
You try hard. Man, it comes natural, man.
Whatever. But yeah, thank you so much for the invite, Vinny. And again, look forward to hearing from your fans. It's Coach David Davis at Instagram. So let me hear from you. I appreciate you having me on, dude.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you.
I got my Kentucky. You didn't say nothing about my Kentucky blue.
You sure did, man. You did.
Yeah, see that?
Man. You bluer than me.
Well, right now it's Kentucky blue. It is Duke blue, but right now it's Kentucky blue.
Hey, it's that chameleon. It's the whatever blue it needs to be. That's what it is, huh?
I have to share one more Kentucky story. I'm sorry, Danny. Chris Marcus. I coached Chris Marcus. He went All-American at Western Kentucky. Coached him in high school. The very first time I was in Kentucky in the arena was Kentucky Western Kentucky game, and it was amazing in there. Great atmosphere, and sadly, you know, Western Kentucky beat them that game.
That's right. They
beat them that game, and I could tell the eagerness of the fans and how much the word fan comes from fanatic. There were literally people crying, like the alumni crying, UK alumni crying, because I don't think Western has ever beat them in like years, since the 70s, I think, when Daniels played. But the environment was incredible. And then that same year, 2002, I got to watch Indiana and Duke play in the Elite Eight game in the arena, where Indiana beat Duke. George Leach played for Indiana. I coached George Leach in high school. That's where AJ Moye blocked Carlos Boozer's dunk.
Okay.
It was in the arena. And I'm gonna just tell you, being in that arena, I've been to every arena, Cameron, IU, Assembly, Chapel Hill, of course, even when they played at the Carmichael. And I want to tell you, the atmosphere in that arena, UK is right up there with places I've been before. So kudos to your fans out there for that too.
Yeah, Rep Arena, man. It can be like, especially that big game Rep Arena atmosphere. It's electricity in there. That Indiana team, that was the Mike Davis Indiana team. Was that Mike?
Was Bobby Knight's team, coached by Mike Davis.
Okay.
Know that. Okay. And it was the year that they fired Coach Knight.
Okay.
But those are all his guys, of course. And they lost to Maryland in the finals that year. Juan Dixon, Steve Blake. But I will tell you, Coach Knight, when he was recruiting George, came down on a home visit and said, hey, we got last year, I think St. John beat them by 20 in NCAA. He told his coaches, we got to start recruiting athletes. We no longer can win with the Mr. Basketball of Indiana. we got to start recruiting athletes. So what he do? He went down south. We got Jeff Newton from Atlanta, AJ Moye from Atlanta, and George from Charlotte. He started getting those because George was a gazelle. He could run the floor 6'11" center. I think he's like number 2 in a IU shot blocking list. But they were athletes.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Coach Knight, poor thing, didn't get to coach that team because he got fired in the semester before. But Mike Davis held them together, and they lost in the finals that year.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, just coming to and going back to the arena, Rupp Arena, man, it's history. I love it there. Hope I can get back one day.
Yeah, man, I have to do it. I have to get you back up there to Bluegrass for sure.
Yeah,
man, I gotta get back over your way. Got to get you up our way, and we got to do all that, man. But
we'll do it. We'll do it. But thank you so much, Vinny. I look forward to looking. I'm gonna show Jackie the podcast when I get back. Right now, I'm actually speaking of the devil. I'm in Chapel Hill right now doing some work.
Okay.
Not a Tar Heel by any means, so I have to close my eyes when I go outside because all that light blue is terrible.
That's right.
But yeah, when I get back to Charlotte, I'm going to share the podcast with her, man. Show what a good job you're doing.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I'll text it to you. I'll put it up on where you can get it for sure, man.
All right. Thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you, dude.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Dave.
All right, you're good. You're good.
Thank you, man. Y'all check him out. David Davis, Instagram, on Twitter. We're going to put it up on Roku. Going to get it up everywhere. Appreciate him coming on. Been too long since we had him on, for sure. He's a friend of the show. And go through little patches where we have friends of the show on and go through a little patch where we don't have friends of the show on for a while. And it's like, oh, man, need to have this person back on. David is, good people. Because I've been over there and chopped it up with him, broke bread at the crib over there in North Carolina with him. He's a good dude. His sports life, man, he's lived a life. His interactions, the people he's crossed paths with, things he's been able to do, the things he's been able to accomplish, unbelievable. And he's a better person than he was a player. So can't thank David enough for taking the time to hop on here. He's not on Twitter a lot, but it's D Davester. Got that scrolling on the ticker at DAVSTER. But we'll get it up and get some clips out and let everybody be able to see that. Y'all will definitely enjoy this episode for sure. Finally, game week for the Cats. Ball State comes to town Saturday, 12 o'clock, Kroger Field. The 50th anniversary of Kroger Field. First game took place in 1973. And so, friend of the show who, again, it's been a minute since we've had him on. Tried to have him on a couple weeks ago, but had to reschedule. Corey Price, stat man extraordinaire as far as historical stats, Kentucky stats, UK football stats. He compiled a 50th anniversary all-time team for Kroger Field for Commonwealth Stadium / Kroger Field. So all the players that have come through the last 50 years, and he compiled it. First team, second team, third team of Kentucky players. Quarterback, 2 running backs, receivers, each position group. And he sent out an email to different members of the media, asked them if they want to participate and fill out the ballot. And he sent me one, and I was honored to be able to take part in his ballot. So I'm going to just go through the first team that I voted or selected, if you will, for Corey's ballot. At quarterback, I had Derek Ramsey. So I was talking about on that 77 team with David Davis. They went 10-1. That's the year I was born. And Kentucky football, the history throughout most of my life had not been good. I hadn't seen 10 wins in a season until 2018. So 41 years old before I see a Kentucky team end a season with double-digit wins. But this 1977 squad did that, went 10-1, SEC champs. Only loss was at Baylor. Went to Penn State and beat them. They, trash thrashed Georgia, LSU, Florida, Tennessee, you name it, they were beating them back then. Derek Ramsey, the unquestioned leader of that team at quarterback, went on to an NFL career, won a Super Bowl, but he was the dude that ran the show at quarterback. Now, there's a lot of people outside of Kentucky may sleep on Kentucky football, some of the talent that has come through at various different positions, or may wonder, well, how is Derek Ramsey first team, in my opinion, the first team pick at quarterback? You know, we had Tim Couch, number one pick in the draft. Tim is my age, next county over in Leslie County, went to Kentucky, went on to be the number one draft pick. But look, Derek Ramsey, when you ask the trivia question, who was the last Kentucky quarterback to win an SEC championship? It's Derek Ramsey at 1970-17. He led Kentucky to an SEC championship. We as Kentucky fans now are hoping to see Kentucky get to Atlanta to win the SEC East, which just be the last year of divisions, but finish once the realignment happens, when Texas and Oklahoma come, finish top two in the SEC and still go to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. That's what we're wanting to see now. Well, Derek Ramsey did it in 1977, the last Kentucky quarterback to do it. So no disrespect to Tim Couch, Andre Woodson, Jared Lorenzen, Mike Hartline, so on and so forth, Terry Wilson, Will Levis. No disrespect to any of those guys, but look, for my first team quarterback for the last 50 years of Kentucky football history, Kroger Field, Commonwealth Stadium, I gotta put Derek Ramsey there. He led them to an SEC championship. Been on this podcast, good people, kind enough to come on here and chop it up with TB and myself as well. I think that was one even my dad and his buddy Tom called in too, because look, they saw those guys play. So that was one where my pops jumped on the podcast too. Running back, Sonny Collins, who was on that 76 team. He wasn't on the 77 team, but was the all-time rushing leader for Kentucky, and the record stood for about 40 years, over 40 years, until Benny Snell finally surpassed him as the all-time rushing leader in Kentucky history. So first team running back, Sonny Collins. My other running back, I go Mo Williams. He was there in the 90s doing his thing for the Cats, went on to play with the Vikings in the pros, had a good NFL career. Saw him drop that, might as well say, 300-yard game on South Carolina, ran for 299. Then the receiving yards, the all-purpose yards were off the charts, but 299 on the ground, 4 touchdowns. They beat South Carolina in Columbia. Mo Williams is my other running back alongside Sonny Collins. At wide receiver, I went with the top 2 on UK's all-time wide receiver list. A lot of guys to choose from, but to me, it was just clear. You know, Craig Yeast and Keenan Burton. Craig Yeast was there with Tim Couch doing his thing with the air raid, with Hal Mummy putting up a lot of points, helping Kentucky become respectable for kind of the first time in my lifetime. You know, they were winning 7 games in the 90s, went to an Outback Bowl with Tim Couch, played Penn State on New Year's Day. That was the first time I'd ever seen that in my life as a Kentucky fan. Jumped out on Penn State, 14-0, 14-3, ended up losing the game, but that was, kind of monumental to see Kentucky playing on New Year's Day, playing in a big bowl game. Wow, playing Penn State. Wow. That hadn't really happened in my lifetime to that point. And I'm a grown man. I'm like, early 20s at this point. Tight end, Jacob Tammy, unbelievable at Kentucky. Long NFL career. The NFL career, the pro career, doesn't have a bearing on my selection, but I'm just mentioning it, as I mentioned the people that I pick at each position. Center, Drake Jackson. We saw him in the Stoops era, seized control of that position. You didn't have to worry about anything but Drake at center, making the calls, making the blocks, making accurate snaps. That gets taken for granted We've seen some snap issues from under center, seen some snaps go awry at different points in times, and they had to get that ironed out. And when Drake was there during his entire time at Kentucky, you didn't have to worry about that. We worry about the big blue wall now. The O-line is back to what we're used to seeing this coming season. Well, it all starts with Jagger Burton, who is moving to center for the first time. This coming Saturday will be his first game at center. He played guard. He's moved over. He's athletic. He's big. He's strong. He's right there from Lexington, a Kentucky kid, talented, but he doesn't have any games under his belt at center. Been doing great in practice, but once again, you gotta see him do it. If I heard my guy Freddie Maggart saying that you want the routine to be routine. You don't think about the quarterback center exchange. You don't think about the snap going right to Leary in the shotgun. But Jagger Burton is that guy, and pretty confident that he'll be able to handle it, but you got to see him do it against Ball State and EKU and Akron and all these teams, moving on to SEC play. At guard, Dermontti Dawson, all-time great. Speaking of center, went on to the NFL, played for the Steelers, became one of the best centers ever, but did not play center at Kentucky. Thinking, well, where's Demie at? But no, he's not going to be on this list as a center. He's going to be on this list, first team list, as a guard. Larry Warford, same thing. Did his thing. He's more in my era. Demie was before my time. But Larry was during my time, went on and played with the Saints, had a long NFL career, and did his thing as well. So now we move to tackle. Let me see if I can pull it up. I know I got it right here somewhere. Yeah. Warren Bryant, the late, great Warren Bryant, friend of this podcast, Warren Bryant, who was before my time back there with Sonny Collins, Derek Ramsey, those guys Frank Kersey brought in. Just an unbelievably kind gentleman. Just as nice and kind as he was, big and strong. And we enjoyed being able to talk with him. And sorry to hear that. We were sorry when he did pass away. But he is, he's a lot to make this list at tackle. And Darian Kennard, who just finished his career a couple years ago and went on to the Chiefs. Same thing. You got those two at tackle. You're going to do some protecting of some blind sides with Warren Bryant and Darian Kennard. Switching over to the defense side of the ball, Art Steele. Look, again, before my time, part of that 77 team, they were just stomping people out. And on the defensive side, he was doing his thing just like Derek Ramsey was on the offensive side. Oliver Barnett on the D-line, his sack record just got eclipsed by Josh Allen. So that tells you what he did while he was at Kentucky. Dwayne Robertson, early 2000s, went to the NFL as a top 5 draft pick coming from Kentucky. Not a lot of talent around him, not a lot of depth around him, but he did his thing. And the late, great Joey Couch, friend of this podcast as well, got him the first team defensive lineman from right there in Paintsville, Kentucky kid. Linebacker, Josh Allen, we just saw him complete his career. Now he's doing his thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The only offers he got was Kentucky and Monmouth. Freddie Maggart saw what nobody else could see in Josh Allen. Saw him being the best prospect in the class when Kentucky recruited him. Christian Nault played in the 80s. Just got inducted into the Kentucky Athletics Hall of Fame. I think number 2 all time in the SEC in tackles. So just ridiculous stats at Kentucky. Christian Nault, overlooked, underrated, underappreciated. Finally kind of got his flowers when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's definitely got to make this list. But Dupree, Think of the early years of the Stoops era. Think of that win over South Carolina. Think of Bud Dupree on the edge, rushing the passer. So those are my three linebackers: Josh Allen, Christian Alt, Bud Dupree. DB, Daryl Bishop. It's before my time, but he's still number one in interceptions. And he tried his hand at basketball as well. Kind of two-sport athlete. You go to bigbluehistory.net, and there you can see Daryl Bishop listed there on the basketball side as well. Condolences because he just passed away as well. Dallas Owens, another DB before my time, but I'm one that I gotta give respect to some of the old school dudes. Even though I didn't see them play, they did their thing. They put in work, put up numbers, paved the way for the guys I watched, paved the way for the guys that are there now. Even though I'm not familiar with their games, I still, when they stack up, what they did still carries weight with me. That's how I kind of compile my list. The old guys, like in the NBA, Oscar Robertson, and Kareem, and Jerry West, they still will hold up. Even I grew up with Jordan and the tail end of Bird and Magic and all that, and now we on into LeBron and KD. I still lean back to the old players before I was alive. I still gotta factor what they did in. Some maybe only watch who they've seen, but that's just the way I make this list. That's where I make pretty much all of my lists whenever it's something like this. So Daryl Bishop and Dallas Owens are going to be on my list. Javard Lindley, DB, during the Rich Brooks era, kind of helped Kentucky come up to respectability again. We saw what they did with Tim Couch and Craig Yeast. Hal Mummy didn't have a lot of great defense on those teams with Hal Mummy. That's putting it mildly. Rich Brooks comes in as a defensive guy. Javard Lindley, a ball hawking corner, went on to spend some time with the hated Philadelphia Eagles, but he did spend some time in the league as well. And he did his thing for UK as a DB. Back when Kentucky was, getting up to bowl games again, winning 7 games, going to bowl games, that run of bowl games, Music City Bowls and things like that Kentucky was going to under Rich Brooks. Javard Lindley was there. And Mike Edwards is my 4th DB. We saw what he did with the Stoops era. He's already helped Kentucky, have consistent year after year after year of very, very good defenses. Got a Super Bowl ring already. So that is my 4 DBs. Daryl Bishop, Dallas Owens, Javard Lindley, Mike Edwards. Kicker, Austin McGinnis. Look, people talk pretty openly about him kind of changing the trajectory of Mark Stoops' tenure with that kick that he hit against Mississippi State. Stoops started off rocky, hadn't made a bowl game, win 2 games, win 5 games, win 5 games in your first 3 years, and then you have a 7-win season in year 4. That kick against Mississippi State to beat them in Lexington, to keep that home streak against Mississippi State going, because they never win in Lexington. Kentucky hasn't won in Starkville forever. Kicks that field goal to beat them, I think 40-38 or something like that. They go on and win 7 games. They lose that game, the fork in the road might be different, and things might not be as they are now. Punter, Max Duffy, Ray Guy Award winner. Enough said. Forget the fact that he's Australian, Aussie rules, hilarious, great personality. That's all just gravy on top of what he did as a punter at Kentucky. Punt returner and kick returner Derek Abney. Look up what he did. He put in work. He also did his work as a receiver as well, but unbelievable special teams player, Derek Abney, back there with Jared Lorenzen in that era. Head coach, I went Fran Kersey because same reason I picked Derek Ramsey. Who was the last quarterback to lead Kentucky to an SEC championship? Derek Ramsey. Who was the last head coach to lead Kentucky to an SEC championship? Fran Kersey. Now that 2017 and went 10-1, Fran Kersey was the coach. He assembled the talent for those teams. Now it got a little rocky and janky in those following years, and some stuff happened. But he was the last coach to lead Kentucky to an SEC championship. So I've got Fran Kersey as my first team coach on the 50th anniversary Commonwealth Stadium Kroger Field team. So that's my first team. Did the second team and third team as well. I'm not gonna take you through all of those, but I put my first team out on Twitter and Facebook, and I appreciate Corey Price for including me and thinking of me and asking me to participate in doing the ballot. It's tough, it's tricky, it's challenging on how you want to make your selections, but I enjoy it. So it was a lot of fun. I think he was on Alan Cutler's show today when he announced the results of the first team. I think he had 61 members of the media and a couple former players that participated as well. So kind of a wide-ranging group, and that was nice of him to include me, to let me be a part of it. So I appreciate that, Corey, and we'll reschedule and get you back on here with us pretty soon too. Have TB been here, we would have both done this together. We usually do this earlier in the summer. We don't usually do it right there at game week, but we never really did our game by game predictions. We've been doing that for several years. And so we'll do it real quick. I do it myself, and did it the other day on Believe in Kentucky with Aaron Gershon and Jalen Whitlow. I'll do it here right quick. We'll go through the schedule, and we got 3 non-conference games right out of the gate. It's a home-heavy first half of the schedule. It's backloaded. It's a little tough at the end. You only get 1 home game in November, and that's Alabama at home. But you got a chance to get off to a good start and find yourself, get your offensive line back up to par in this first half of the season and kind of get some momentum going. You got Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, and Akron, September 2nd, 9th, and 16th. Those are the first 3 home games, and expect Kentucky to be 3-0 at the end of those. So, as far as Saturday, my score prediction, I'm going to say Kentucky 30, Ball State 9. 30-9. Kentucky shouldn't have any trouble. We've seen some opening day games. We've seen some non-conference games against inferior opponents be closer than we wish they were or want them to be. But I think maybe this is the year that we can, beat teams like we're supposed to beat them. So we'll see. I'm saying 30-9, Kentucky over Ball State. Win over Ball State, win over EKU, win over Akron. Open up conference play in Nashville at Vanderbilt and their half-completed stadium. Ray Davis is going to go back to his previous school. He transferred to Kentucky from Vanderbilt. So Ray will be going back to Nashville to play his old team. He came up to Lexington last year as Vandy upset Kentucky, and Ray ran for about 130 yards and was a problem. So 1 of 4 running backs to rush for 1,000 yards in the SEC last year. Ray Davis, Judkins at Ole Miss, and a couple other guys that are escaping my mind right now. But cool to have Ray as a 1,000-yard back in our backfield now, going back to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt struggled with Hawaii. Kentucky should not struggle with Vanderbilt on the road. They avenged last year's loss to the Commodores. That was one of those 2 plays away from 9-3. You lose to Vanderbilt, you lose to Ole Miss. You finish up at 7-5 where you could have been 9-3. So you're 4-0. You get Florida at home, and the days of the long losing streak to Florida are over. There's a chance to now kind of control the series against Florida, continue to be better than Florida. Won down there last year. Kentucky should take care of them again at home. Don't expect Florida to be that good of a football team. And you keep it going. You go to 5-0 and beat Florida. That means you're undefeated heading to Athens against Georgia, two-time defending champs. We just talked about with David Davis how light their schedule is. Could be one of the tougher home games Georgia has. We know the scores by heart as Kentucky fans, but Georgia looked last year 16-6 at Kroger Field with the Rich Gangarello non-existent offense. 14-3, I think the time before that at Kroger Field. They won a game 21-0. C-Rod drops a touchdown. Georgia has not been blowing Kentucky out. It was 30-13 in Athens last year. 2018 season, I think Georgia won 34-17. The Tennessee game, I said this last week on Believe in Kentucky, the Tennessee game last year in Knoxville was way uglier than any of these Georgia games have been the past 5 or 6 years. Kentucky can play with them, can compete with them. Can they get over the hump and finally beat them? It's been a long time since Kentucky has beaten Georgia. I can't pick this year to be the year. Will they go down there and not embarrass themselves? Yeah. Are there more victories? No. But I can see it kind of being a Georgia 17, Kentucky 10 kind of game. So that will be in my opinion, the first loss of the season. They're 5-1 after playing the Dogs. Get Missouri at home October 14th, and been beating Missouri. You know, they want to beat Kentucky really bad, but I don't think it'll happen for them. Don't think they're going to be good. Reports are they're going to have a good defense, but I don't think Drinkwitz and them are ready to come to Lexington and get a win. And you can't let Georgia beat you twice. If they do lose to Georgia, you'll hear Mark Stoops say that. You can't let Georgia beat you twice. Can't be fooling around losing to Missouri after losing to Georgia. Takes you to the bye week, October 21st, and you get Tennessee after the bye week, October 28th. Now, the bye weeks haven't been kind to Kentucky. Sometimes the opponent after a bye week is formidable. That plays in. Kentucky's history against Tennessee is what it is. We've seen a few wins here, 2011, 2017, 2020. The dreaded streak has been ended. Talked about what an ugly game it was down there last year. And it just pains me that I think Tennessee will find a way to break our hearts again. So that would mean that Kentucky would have 2 losses on the season now. That would have them 6-2, 8 games in. And this is going into Kentucky's gauntlet. Now, coming off a bye, playing Tennessee, the bye week helps, as far as getting healthy and all that. Tennessee plays at Alabama the week before they play Kentucky. I like that for Kentucky. Tennessee's coming in beat up after playing Alabama, and how physical they are. But I still can't bring myself to pick Kentucky to beat Tennessee. But I can bring myself to have Kentucky end the streak and start for the following week, November the 4th at Mississippi State. Haven't won in Starkville in forever. I think Randall Cobb was still down there in Lexington the last time Kentucky. Yeah, last time Kentucky beat Mississippi State. I think it was that 14-13 game in Starkville with Randall Cobb. They don't win in Lexington. We don't win in Starkville. But I think that ends. And as far as that Mississippi State, Tennessee back-to-back, I think they split it. Had they beat Tennessee, I think they would lose to Mississippi State and Starkville again. I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee, as bad as it kills me to say that. But I think they will turn right around and beat Mississippi State to get to 7-2. Sets up the final home game of the season, senior night. Alabama coming to town, and look, I can't pick Kentucky to win that one. Love to be a replay of 1997 when Kentucky beats Alabama. That's the last time Kentucky beat Alabama. Prior to that, hadn't beat them since 1922. So twice in 100 years. They don't play every year, but still. Kentucky is in better shape or be a better team than they have ever been in my lifetime when Alabama comes to Lexington. But just can't. It's the elephant in the room. Can't see a win there. So 7-3 at South Carolina. I think that they beat South Carolina and they beat Louisville, so it'll be 9-3 to finish out the season. And look, that's solid. Let's not act like 9-3 happens a lot. So we'll take that and we'll run with it and hope it plays out that way. And the 3 losses are teams that, you know, if you beat who you're supposed to be, you can win 9, you lose 3, and we'll see. So hopefully I'm wrong on those other ones, but I'm picking them 9-3. And we had another fun show, and appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. TB, feel better, get better. Missed you tonight. Appreciate David Davis hopping on. Enjoyed every second of that. Got to get you back on as well. Got another fun show next week, and we got actual games to talk about as far as Kentucky is concerned. So for TB, we'll see you next week. David Davis, appreciate you. It's been another episode of Cats Talk Wednesday, courtesy of the BS3 Network. We'll see everybody next week. Y'all listen and watch. We'll have it out soon. Take care, everybody.